I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am. My name's Tom, and I'm 34, married to Jessica for 6 years. We always thought we were the perfect couple. You know, the kind where people say, "You guys are goals." We had a cute little house, a golden retriever named Charlie, and a pretty good life together. But lately it's felt like the ground is crumbling beneath me. Things started to change about 3 months ago. Jessica, who used to be all about our cozy nights in, suddenly became obsessed with going out with her friends. At first I figured, great! She's getting some social time. But then those nights turned into weekends, and I began to notice things. Little things. Like how she'd come home smelling like some perfume I'd never bought her. And when I asked about it, she'd shrug it off, saying, "Oh, it's just something new I wanted to try." I'm not an insecure guy, but I started to get a weird gut feeling. Her phone became a fortress. I'd see her texting, laughing at whatever was on the screen, but if I asked who it was, she'd flip out. "Why do you have to invade my privacy?" She'd get all bitchy, telling me I was being paranoid. I hated feeling like the bad guy, so I kept my mouth shut, trying to convince myself it was just a phase. But deep down, I knew something was off. I wish I could say there was one big moment that led me to the truth, but it was more like a series of little, heartbreaking moments that added up to a painful revelation. One Friday night, I was sitting at home, alone with Charlie, while Jessica had yet another girls' night out. I was flipping through channels, feeling that familiar pang of loneliness, when I noticed her phone sitting on the kitchen counter. I know, going through her phone is a breach of trust. But the nagging feeling in my gut was getting unbearable. I picked it up, my heart racing as I debated whether to actually look. My hands shook a bit, but curiosity won. As I unlocked her phone, thanks to her easily guessed passcode, I immediately saw a message thread from a guy named Dave. My heart sank. I scrolled through their conversations, and it was just flirtation at first, flirty emojis. "Can't wait to see you." And then, the worst part. "Last night was amazing. We need to do it again." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I thought I was going to be sick. Suddenly, everything made sense. The late nights, the weird perfume, the defensiveness. I was reeling, and my mind raced with images of her with this guy, whatever they were doing. My hands trembled as I put the phone back down. I couldn't believe what I had just discovered. My whole world was flipping upside down. After that gut-wrenching discovery, I didn't sleep at all that night. I was just lying there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the past few months. I felt betrayed and sickened, but I also knew I needed to confront Jessica. There was no way I could let this slide. When she finally came home the next morning, I could tell she was hungover. Her hair was a mess, and she had that "I'm trying to pretend everything is normal" smile plastered on her face. But I wasn't going to let her brush this off. "Jess, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She raised an eyebrow, clearly annoyed. "Can it wait?" "I'm exhausted, Tom." "No, it can't," I shot back. "I saw your messages with Dave." Her face fell, and for a second, I thought I saw panic flicker in her eyes before she composed herself. "What messages?" she asked, feigning confusion. "Don't play games with me, Jess. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Last night was amazing? What the hell is that?" Her demeanor shifted instantly. The defensiveness kicked in, and she became cold, almost dismissive. "Oh, come on, Tom. It's just a joke between friends. You're blowing this way out of proportion." "A joke? Flirting with another guy is just a joke to you." I felt my anger rising. "What happened to our relationship? You never mentioned Dave before, so how long has this been going on?" She rolled her eyes, exasperated. "You're being ridiculous. Dave is just a coworker. We were all drunk, and it didn't mean anything." I couldn't believe her. The lies spilled from her lips like a broken faucet, each one cutting deeper. "It didn't mean anything? You don't just text someone like that unless there's something going on. Why do you have to be so insecure?" She shot back, her voice dripping with irritation. You're making this worse than it is. In that moment, I felt a mix of disbelief and rage. How could she turn this around on me? How could she dismiss my feelings so easily? It was infuriating, and I knew this conversation was only going to get uglier. I stood there, grappling with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion, and a profound sense of sadness. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was standing right in front of me, but she felt like a stranger. How could she be so callous? The walls felt like they were closing in, and I could barely catch my breath. As she continued to insist that I was overreacting, I felt my heart shatter a little more with each word. It was like a fog descended over my mind, and suddenly, I wasn't just angry. I was hurt in a way I had never imagined possible. Memories of us flooded back, laughing together, the vacations, the mundane but comforting moments that now felt tainted. I remembered how we talked about starting a family, and now that future felt ripped away. The more she lied, the more my chest tightened. You don't get to dismiss my feelings like this, I finally said, my voice wavering. You've been lying to me, Jessica. How can you sit there and pretend this is nothing? Her response was a roll of her eyes, paired with an exaggerated sigh. You really want to make this a big deal? Fine, whatever. It's not like I'm sleeping with him. I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her understand the gravity of what she was doing. But you are sleeping with him, aren't you? You're in love with him. How could you do this to me? The words tasted bitter on my tongue, but I needed to say them. Her face hardened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of guilt before it was replaced by anger. You know what? I'm tired of this. You're acting like such a victim right now. Maybe I wouldn't have had to go looking for someone else if you weren't so boring. That was it. Her words were like a slap in the face. The realization hit me hard. This was not just about betrayal. This was a fundamental shift in who she was. I was losing the woman I thought I knew, and that thought crushed me. The anger I felt was now tinged with deep sadness. I wasn't just angry at her. I was heartbroken over the death of the life we had built together. In that moment, everything began to spiral. I went from rage to despair, feeling utterly lost and unsure of what to do next. How could I move forward from this? Would I ever be able to trust her again? I had no answers, just a hollow feeling deep inside that echoed with every lie she told. The confrontation ended in a stalemate, with Jessica storming off to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the kitchen, heart racing and mind racing faster. I felt like a ship lost at sea, tossed about by the waves of confusion and heartbreak. I wanted to believe there was some way to salvage what we had, but deep down, I knew things could never be the same. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I moved through our house like a ghost, each room echoing with memories that now felt tainted. I didn't sleep, barely ate, and the laughter that used to fill our home was replaced by a deafening silence. Charlie sensed my turmoil and stayed glued to my side, offering me a comfort I desperately needed. One night, I sat in the living room, scrolling through old photos of us, looking for a glimpse of the happiness we once shared. It was painful, but it also made me realize that I was hanging on to a version of Jessica that no longer existed. I couldn't continue living in a state of uncertainty, waiting for her to either come clean or twist the knife deeper. I knew I had to make a choice. I needed to stand up for myself. So, I made the decision to tell her that I was moving out. It felt liberating, yet terrifying. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine while she dismissed my feelings. I wanted to reclaim my life, my happiness, and my dignity. When I finally sat her down to talk, it was like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. Jessica, I'm leaving, I said, my voice steady. I can't do this anymore. I deserve better than this endless cycle of lies. Her reaction was immediate, almost panicked. What? You can't just leave. We can work this out, she pleaded, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. She knew I had made up my mind. No, Jess. I can't keep doing this. I need space to figure out who I am without you. This isn't just a mistake, this is a pattern. I can't trust you anymore. As I packed a few essentials, I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. This was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I knew it was the right decision for me. I deserved to be with someone who valued honesty and commitment, and it was clear that Jessica had chosen a different path. I moved in with a friend, and while the days that followed were filled with uncertainty and heartache, I felt a small spark of hope flicker within me. I had taken a stand for myself, and in that act of self-preservation, I realized I could rebuild my life. I would find a way to heal, even if the journey was long and painful. It's been a few weeks since I moved out, and honestly, it's been a roller coaster of emotions. Some days I feel empowered, like I've finally taken control of my life. Other days, I'm still haunted by memories of Jessica and the life we had together. It's weird how quickly everything can change. One moment, you're planning a future with someone, and the next, you're left picking up the pieces of a shattered dream. I've been trying to focus on myself during this time. I've taken long walks with Charlie, started going to the gym, and even reconnected with some old friends. I'm slowly rediscovering who I am outside of my marriage, which has been both liberating and terrifying. I've realized how much I lost sight of myself while trying to keep our relationship afloat. Talking to friends has helped, too. They've been incredibly supportive, sharing their own experiences with betrayal and heartbreak. I found out I'm not alone in this. Everyone has their own story of love gone wrong, and while it doesn't make the pain disappear, it's comforting to know that others have emerged stronger on the other side. As for Jessica, I still think about her sometimes, but the anger and betrayal have dulled into a painful acceptance. I've come to understand that her actions were a reflection of her character, not mine. I couldn't change her choices, and I don't want to be with someone who disrespects our vows. What surprised me the most is how clear things became after I left. I used to second-guess myself constantly, wondering if I was overreacting or being too dramatic. But now, I see it all with clarity. The late nights, the lies, the betrayal, they weren't just bumps in the road, they were red flags I ignored because I wanted to believe in her. I've learned that love isn't just about the good times, it's about trust, respect, and honesty. I deserve someone who values those things as much as I do. I'm starting to embrace the idea that maybe this is a new beginning for me. Perhaps it's an opportunity to find someone who appreciates me for who I am, flaws and all, instead of looking elsewhere when things get tough. As I reflect on this whole experience, I want to share a piece of advice for anyone in a similar situation: trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't brush it aside. It's okay to ask questions and demand transparency. You deserve that in any relationship. And if things do fall apart, remember that it's not the end of the world. It can be the beginning of something new, something better. As the weeks passed, I continued to settle into this new chapter of my life. I started to explore hobbies I had set aside during my marriage. I took up painting again, something I loved but had abandoned years ago. There was something cathartic about pouring my emotions onto a canvas, using colors and strokes to express what I couldn't put into words. It felt like therapy, a way to channel my heartbreak into something tangible. I also started dating again cautiously. It felt strange at first, almost wrong to think about being with someone else when I still had feelings for Jessica. But I realized that opening my heart again didn't mean I was betraying myself or our past. It meant I was moving forward. I went on a few dates, and while they didn't turn into anything serious, I enjoyed the conversations and the connection. It reminded me that there are still kind, genuine people out there. One night, I went out with a few friends to a local bar. While we were chatting and laughing, I bumped into a woman named Sarah. She was warm and funny, with a smile that lit up the room. We struck up a conversation, and for the first time in months, I found myself genuinely enjoying someone's company. There was a lightness to the interaction that I hadn't felt in a long time, and I could feel the walls I had built around my heart starting to crack. Eventually, we exchanged numbers, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations. I still had moments when I thought about Jessica and the betrayal, but I also felt a sense of hope blossoming inside me. It was a slow process, but I was beginning to believe that I could find happiness again, and that made all the difference. I also took the time to reflect on what I wanted in my next relationship. I knew I needed to prioritize communication and trust. I would no longer ignore my gut feelings or let anyone manipulate my emotions. I wanted a partner who would be open, honest, and supportive, a true teammate. I also sought therapy to work through my feelings about the marriage. Talking to a professional helped me process the hurt and anger I had bottled up. I learned to separate my self-worth from Jessica's choices, and that was a game changer. It became clear that her infidelity wasn't a reflection of my value as a person, it was a decision she made, and it said more about her than it ever could about me. As I moved forward, I began to see the experience as a painful but valuable lesson. I realized that love is not just about grand gestures or shared dreams, it's built on a foundation of trust and respect. And while my marriage didn't work out, I was determined to take those lessons into my future relationships. I was no longer the naive husband I once was. I was a man who had been tested and, despite the pain, had come out stronger and more self-aware. I started to feel optimistic about what lay ahead. Maybe this heartbreak was just a stepping stone towards something better, something real. I was learning to embrace my own worth and believing that I could find a partner who would appreciate and cherish me, just as I would them. As I reflect on everything that's happened, I realize how transformative this experience has been. It's funny how life can throw you into the deepest valleys, only for you to emerge stronger and more resilient on the other side. I've learned to trust myself again, and it feels incredible. The journey hasn't been easy, and there are still days when I think about Jessica, but I no longer feel the weight of her betrayal dragging me down. Instead, I carry the lessons I've learned as a badge of honor. I know now what I want in a relationship and, more importantly, what I won't accept. I've been dating Sarah for a little while now, and while it's still new, it feels refreshing. There's an openness between us that I've never experienced before. We talk about our past, our hopes for the future, and even our fears. There's no pressure, no pretense, just two people getting to know each other at their own pace. It's a stark contrast to my previous relationship, and I can't help but feel grateful for this second chance at love. One of the most significant changes in me is my perspective on vulnerability. I used to see it as a weakness, but now I understand that it takes real courage to be open and honest with someone. I've learned to communicate my feelings without fear, and it's been liberating. I want my future partner to know my heart, and for me to know theirs. No more secrets, no more hidden texts, just transparency and mutual respect. As for Jessica, I've had moments of anger and resentment, but I'm learning to let go. I understand that her choices were hers alone, and holding on to that anger only chains me to the past. I wish her well, genuinely, but I know I'm better off without her. It's a bittersweet realization, but it's also freeing. To anyone out there who's going through something similar, I want to say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs. If you feel something is off, take a step back and evaluate the situation. You deserve honesty, respect, and love. And if you find yourself in a place of betrayal, remember that it's not the end. It can be the beginning of something beautiful if you allow yourself to heal and grow. I've emerged from this experience with a renewed sense of self, a deeper understanding of love, and an unwavering belief that my happiness is worth fighting for. Here's to new beginnings, to rediscovering joy, and to finding the love that truly deserves my heart.